Because in the Navy, you know exactly what you need to do to get to the next level or to in your job. But when you get out, you're all of a sudden you have really no one telling you that. They have, so I would say that it was rough because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I wanted to do it. I didn't know where I wanted to go.
In part two with Andrea, we talked about her military experience, transition, and much more. Let's check it out. If we were friends in high school, who was
Oh
Andrea
God.
Gepner, and why did you decide to join the military?
Um, wow. Okay, what a question. Okay, so I graduated. I'm gonna age myself completely. I graduated in 88, but I did not join the military until 91. Yeah. 91. January of 91. No, January, yeah, 91. Um, so I had some years there, but back when I was in high school, I was a terrible high school student. I mean, terrible. I worked all the time. I worked two jobs. I was in a special program called DECA where you go to school in the morning and you work in the afternoon. And then I had a second job on top of that. And it was a great program because I was a terrible student. Like terrible. I failed college algebra 3 times. I failed high school algebra twice. So people ask why I'm an accountant. It's not math.
Yeah.
Trust me. And I can solve for S. I just don't understand imaginary numbers. Just don't get it. So, and everybody kept saying I wanted to join when I was 18, but everybody said I couldn't do it, and I listened. So then I said, you know what? I don't want to be stuck as a secretary for the rest of my life. So I'm gonna join the military. I'm gonna pick computers, and I just did it, and I didn't even tell anyone until after I left.
So they got a phone call a
Yep.
few days later saying, "Hey, I'm
Yep. Pretty much. Well, I was on debt program for a little while, but yeah, I told my mom and dad, and I didn't tell anybody else. I didn't tell anyone else. I just left. Went to boot
where,
camp. It was great.
where was boot camp for you? Great Lakes or
We were one of the last all women boot camps before they merged in Orlando. Yeah, so not Great Lakes. I'm from Minnesota, so yeah, I was very happy about Orlando in January.
that's not a bad place. I was in San Diego, so they call me a Hollywood Marine, but I didn't mind it there either. It sounded much better than Paris Island. So how do you think the military made you better?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. I was in for 13 years, so honestly, it's really where I found myself. So I didn't have that college experience where I went off to college and kind of grew up and it just wasn't available to me. So it really matured me. It taught me to, teamwork in a different way. Prior to that, and well, we'll get into that later, but it it honestly, I went to my first ship. It was such a great experience. I mean, I actually liked being underway. I know that's weird, but I loved it. I absolutely loved going to all these different places. It was exciting, and it changed my perspective of me and allowed me to grow up without, my family drama and really kind of find myself. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
No.
So where did you were on ship most of the time? It sounds like you traveled all over.
Oh, everywhere. So I went to two different ships, the USS Puget Sound, which is now decommissioned, and the USNS Saturn, because those were the only two ships women were allowed on. And then I went to shore duty in Virginia Beach, and then I spent time in Italy and Diego Garcia. I don't recommend that, but um, and then once I got out, yeah, I transitioned. I actually taught in a school. And then after that, I got out. I mean, it was 13 years. So.
Yeah, that's a good service time. So speaking of transition, what was your transition like? Because I know that's a tough topic for any veteran who's going through that.
It's especially harder, I think, for women because I had my son at that point and he was like a year old. So my choices in the military or in the Navy was to go back to a ship. And then at that point, your baby is only like a year old. You're like, I can't do that. I can't leave him. Who would I leave him with? And then I can't leave him. So I said, okay, I have to say goodbye. And I honestly was saddened by it. It really was. And, but transition is so hard. You could go anywhere and you could do anything and you have all these choices. You're overwhelmed just by the sheer amount of choices you have. Because in the Navy, you know exactly what you need to do to get to the next level or to in your job. But when you get out, you're all of a sudden you have really no one telling you that. They have, so I would say that it was rough because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I wanted to do it. I didn't know where I wanted to go or where. So I ended up going to Memphis because my sister lived there, but hated Memphis. So for all those people who are in Memphis, I'm sorry, it's just not the place for me. But um so I came down to Dallas, but honestly, I had to try a lot of different things before I found something that I wanted to do. And the other thing and the best thing that helped me is my sister was in human resources. So she helped me figure out how to talk like a civilian and how to transfer my experience and my skills that I had from the military into civilian type things. So, um, really talk to HR people. They can help you, even if you just go on a Facebook group and say, look, you know, I was a supervisor, or, I was a squad leader, or I was a supervisor, or I was whatever. How do I explain that? That is, that it's not command and control, that I actually super and built people. How do I describe that in my resume? How do I make that, you know, sound like a civilian?
Yeah.
But you do. It's hard. It's hard to transition. And then the other thing was, especially when I went to go work with banks, and they have their own language, and the Navy has its own language. And it took me 2 years to stop calling the bathroom a head. Really, it did. So I had to find industry magazines and industry forums so I could learn the language of that business or that industry. And that really helped me to put it into this perspective of when I went on interviews, I could speak their language. And that was one of the hardest things to learn. And then to use some of my military experience, but make it a story that a civilian can understand. So what I did was they wanted to know at the time, because this was a while ago, but when I got out, um, they wanted out of the box thinkers. And so I literally came up with the one story in the Navy when I had to carry um, a 96 roll of toilet paper up the ladder well, 7 flights, because that's where the storeroom was. And obviously, those boxes are huge. It's like going over to Target and buying those huge Costco things and then have a couple of them and then try and walk up a ladder. Go do that with a ladder. So obviously that wasn't going to happen. And so I told the story about how I went down, I broke down the box, shoved all the toilet paper into a bag, put it over my shoulder, and then went up the ladder well. And they were impressed by that because I thought literally out of the box. So come up with stories about what you did that they can relate to. And it may not be, oh, shot a big, huge gun in the middle of, whatever. You need to find stuff that they can see in their head. They could see me carrying around a huge, especially because you can't see it here, but I'm only 5 feet tall, so kind of my box, you know. So you have to come up with stories that people can relate to who have never known anyone in the military. They
Sure.
just don't know. They don't know anything about it. They think all we do is shoot people.
Yeah, we're trained to do that. We know how to do it.
Right.
So for you, what was your I know you're in the financial industry now, but
Mhm.
when you were in the military, what was your job and what were you trying to get into when you got out of the military?
Yeah, so I was in IT, so I actually went into computers. I started on hardware, run into risk management. When I got out of the military, because of the hours, I didn't want to work hardware because the hours are really bad when you have a young kid. So, um, in that respect, I had a little bit more employable because it was computers, especially, I got out in 2005. So computers are really big. But I switched to software and I became um, kind of what they basically my job was to help the developers figure out what they needed to do. And honestly, I went on a lot of informational interviews to try and make that adjustment because I really didn't know what I was going to do. And um, I did that for a long time. Actually, how I got into financials, but I've always loved money. And when I was in the Navy, I did, the voluntary tax stuff, and I helped some of the more junior people, with their finances and things of that nature. So, um, to me, it kind of, I liked it, but it really wasn't my favorite thing to do. And it takes, when you get out, take a deep breath. You're going to have a lot of stuff thrown at you and kind of just figure out what are the things in the military that you like to do and how can you do that in the civilian world,
Yeah.
and from there you'll be able to find the VA has so many resources. Go talk to them. They'll help you.
So you were in software, so how did you find your path to the financial industry?
Well, like I said, I've always had a thing about money and helping people with their personal finances, and I was working for the bank, and I got switched to the commercial bank, and I started helping all these, mid-sized businesses, and I would have to go out to them, and we would be investigating them, and and I would just talk to them and they'd be like, "Yeah, I can't find this person with this skills and this is how I found my first client. He was a mid-size and he's like, "I just need someone to do our bookkeeping." I said, "I'll do it. I will do it. I need the money. My son's bar mitzvah is coming up. I need money to pay for that almost wedding at 13 years old for my families. And I will be more than happy." And I ended up, after going through his books, I said, "Hey, you can save about $25,000 if you just do these three things." And he was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, just do the, I did this for free. I can't believe I did it for free." So he did that and he was like, "Holy crap, why aren't you doing this?" And he's really the one, and he kept recommending me to, he's still my client. He's great. And he just kept recommending me, and the next thing I know, I was doing this. I of course gone back to school and I did that accounting fun stuff, and I have a business degree and a MBA and I don't know, whatever. So my dad's a CPA, so maybe it just comes naturally to me. I don't know. But um, I, I think I think it loves tech and finance are my two loves, right? So I combine them. I can't see myself being a broker. I can't do that. But I love helping people figure out ways to make their business run better. And I think I just naturally lean to it. But it took a while to figure that out and to believe that I could do it. That's
Yeah.
the other thing.
So how far into it did you? You just said, I'm leaving JP Morgan Chase.
I 2 years, 2 years
Two.
in. hmm
That's awesome. So you had a few clients under your belt at that time, or just the
At
one?
that time, yeah, I kept getting maybe one every 6 months. I will say, if you do decide to open your own business, you need to learn how to sell yourself. You will talk to people. It's the number one skill. And my sister is a salesperson. She can sell an air conditioner to an Eskimo in the middle of winter and make them think it's their idea. And I've never been able to do that. But I did find that people, especially with money, they just want someone to talk to them like they're a normal human being. So that's what I try to do. And I use real words and not fancy words, and people tend to like that.
Absolutely. Well, when you do a good job like you did, and then you have somebody refer you to other people too. That's a great way. You don't even have to sell yourself. They're
Yeah,
selling you for you. So
it helps talking to nice people who ask good questions.
absolutely. So what advice would you have for a transitioning vet? Let's say I'm looking to get out here in the next, 6 to 12 months. What sort of things should I be thinking about?
Save some money so that you're able to take a couple of months and just take a deep breath and look at some things that you're doing in the military. Really think about, what are those things that I like to do? Do I like managing people? Do I am I doing anything in the military that I just like to do, or even in my personal life that I do on the side, like carpentry or something like that, because that may be your first venue. And the other thing is, start talking to people. Um, Talk to other veterans. There's some great Facebook groups you could join. Ask questions, and people like to help. So if you're like, oh, I want to go into construction, start talking to the people around you that are in construction and say, well, what do you like about it? What do you don't? Just go ask a bunch of questions. Most people are happy to respond. Now, if you want to go into, finance or a bank, call them up and see if you can go on LinkedIn, send them a message, say, hey, transitioning military. I'm thinking about a career in banking. Could you have 5 minutes to talk to me about your experiences so that I can see if that's something I want to do?
Absolutely. I really like that too because I mean, for me, the camaraderie in the military is something that I really missed when I was out.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure about you, and I'll
Oh,
ask
yeah.
you a question here in a minute, but up here, we have a tight group of veterans that, we get together, we always hold each other accountable, we talk to each other, on a weekly basis, just to see how each other are doing, because
Hmm.
we've had friends who've had mental health issues or this and that, and you want to be there for those guys. You don't want them to, be a part of the 22 a day
Yeah.
statistics. So, it's just keeping accountability. But down in
Hmm.
Texas, do you have like a network that you're a part of that, people could look into if they're looking to move back there?
Well, when I first got out there, I was in Memphis and we didn't really have anything. When I moved down to Dallas, I actually was hired on a program for JP Morgan with other veterans. And so I made it my business to go find the other veterans, and they hosted a luncheon, and there was like, I don't know, 50 of us. And I talked to everybody and I kept in touch with them. I was like, so how's it going? How do you like the bank? And when people left the bank or, whatever, and they said, no, I don't really like this, I want to go, I would just keep in touch with them and say, so how's everything going there? Or, how are you liking that job that you have at the bank? Because the bank is a huge place, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean,
especially
there's like, yeah, JP Morgan has 250,000 people, so, um, you know, so that happened to be a specific program. If there's not, there's also in Dallas, there's a business luncheon that they have monthly that they host. His name's Randy Watkins, and he hosts it. And sometimes it's nice to go in and talk to people. even retirees. The VFW here is very active. I haven't joined it, uh, but sometimes especially when my son was young, when I didn't have a lot of money, we would go to the, the host. It's a little weirder for women. The best thing I ever did though was join VWise, which is VWise, especially for opening business. They have a conference for women veterans. Uh, it was literally the best experience I've ever been through. Um, it, I've never been so amazed, and it wasn't so much learning about the business life that was kind of, it was meeting these amazing women that were veterans and they thought like me and they were like me and they had that same kind of attitude, and it it was just a great experience. So there's plenty of resources out there. Make friends. Just Texas, we have a lot of veterans here. So if you're in a smaller place like Tennessee or Minnesota where you may not get that same, put up a meetup. Do a meetup.com or an event, and or your kids schools usually host a veteran. Make sure you get their phone numbers and say, look, I'm just looking for a battle buddy. I'm just looking for, a teammate to hang out with that understands me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, to your point there too, I mean, LinkedIn has been a powerful tool for me. I've had
Hmm.
people, a lot of people reach out to me, but I always see who else is in my area that, I might be able to leverage as a
Hmm.
resource or be a benefit to my business. So really good point there. So VWise, is that just a women's group or is that a
No, they have two. They have just for business owners, and then they have a specific one for just women,
okay.
for veterans or and spouses or whatever, but it's just specific to women. But they do have one for men too, and it's a great program. Um, like I said, it's really just going to some of the veteran stuff as a woman can be, a lot of overtaken with testosterone and not that that's a bad thing. I loved being in the military, but we have different issues and problems. Just like a lot of the times when, just like I've never been to, I mean, I went to a couple of different deserts, but I didn't have to do some of the things that the Army and the National Guard and the Marines had to do. And so they want to be with people that understand them. So that's what I look for, right?
Yep, absolutely. So for you, do you have a daily routine that sets you up for success every day or
Um, I'm up at the crack of dawn. I guess I've always been an early riser, even when I was a kid. So especially when my son was young, that was like my me time. And so I would get up at 4:30, and from 4:30 to 5:30, that's my time to drink a cup of coffee and just chill before the chaos of the day happens. Now that my son is grown, it's me and my dog, so I drink a cup of coffee, take the dog for a walk. Um, yeah, and honestly, I just you just plow through things. Until,
yeah.
we're in the military. Plow through things to get things done.
Oh, and I absolutely agree with the alone time. I mean, I get up and, you know, most days go to the gym just to clear the fog and get myself into that mode where, you're preparing yourself mentally for the day that first hour. So it's
I I know I don't have a morning routine. I do take one full day off where I'm not on the computer, I'm not on my phone, I'm not electronic, and I connect with myself. I generally do it on Saturday, but whatever day works for you, and I connect with myself and my family. So, like, I'll call my son up and bug him about, because I'm a mom.
yeah,
Um, I'll walk my dog, I'll ride a bike, I'll go find a new experience that I just want to try that's near me that like I went to play Clue one night at the real live Clue at the art museum. They set the whole thing up like a Clue game. It was cool.
That's awesome. So,
So,
before you leave this earth, Andrea, what impact do you want to leave in the community and or the world?
oh, that's a Benjamin Franklin question. um, I guess for my community, I guess if I don't know. I hope most of my friends think I'm a good person that they can call up and say, "Hey, Andrew was always there for me." For my family, I hope they know that I give them at least 110%. That, you know, I don't say I put them first, but I will say that, I will go out of my way to make something happen for my family.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this one, make sure to check out these episodes over here as well. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next video.